Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can give them a jingle and just tell them, no matter what, just to plow it all the time like it was somebody's driveways.
I would say as long as it meet our normal, it's like.
Yeah.
3 inches of snow, then get out here and plow it.
1 inch. Yeah, otherwise that little white Volkswagen gets stuck out here.
Drove the other one. I got the other.
Oh, okay. Then don't push in the fenders because they're plastics.
All right, 6 o'clock, we will call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday, January 8th, 2024 Credit River City Council meeting. We'll begin by approving or amending the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Possibly, or no, not the agenda.
Okay.
There's the only thing I'd like to do is add a brief presentation and an introduction of our planner to section 5 presentations.
All right. All right. Hearing no other changes, I will take a motion to approve the agenda with the one change.
So move.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second it.
All right, Leroy. A motion and a second to approve the agenda with one change. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Sheriff's report. Deputy Fearson, good evening. Caught you while you're still typing. If you don't mind, if you'd please turn that microphone on. Square button, just hold it. You're good.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So the majority of the December calls that we had were medicals and alarms, which is kind of our, again, our normal. This is a combination of fire, burglary, and medical alarms. The medical portion comes out as 2 different ways. One, it is issued to us as an alarm. If it is a pendant or a fall notification, the other calls, if someone knows that it's a medical, it gets issued to us as directly as a medical. So a little bit of separation in those. We did have a few cases of illegal dumping in December. Most of them were up by Murphy Lake. I worked with Three Rivers and got those taken care of. Sounds like there's a pretty good relationship between the city and Three Rivers, so kind of a back and forth agreement. So I worked with them and got those couple things taken care of. Alex, the Three Rivers community service officer, got me connected with actually one of the agencies with Scott County and for tracking all the dumping and whatnot. So the Credit River deputies will now have access to that as well, so that we can track a little bit more if we're seeing hot spots of dumping taking place. So moving on from that, I had mentioned before, I believe last month, about our Citizens Academy that is coming up. That information has been provided to the city. I believe it's on your Facebook.
It's on the website.
The website.
Yep.
So again, it's a great opportunity to learn about the sheriff's office. You learn about all the different departments, our patrol departments, court, civil, rec safety, our canine investigations, emergency management, and then we also have a reserve unit that is always looking for more members as well. So if you want to get involved, there's several different ways. So safety topic for January is going to be our vehicle security. So obviously there were some vehicle tampering and theft incidences that had taken place in Credit River, which had spread from Dakota County. Dakota County did have another incident on January 4th. Some more vehicles that were being tampered with. From my understanding, they have found a vehicle that was stolen and the individuals that were responsible for that. So along with that, I believe we're supposed to get some really cold weather coming. I use remote start on my truck all the time. Just a quick fresh reminder for people that obviously if you're using remote start, if it's a push button, make sure the key fob is not in the car. That's kind of the hot way that the newer vehicles are being stolen, is everybody just moves the key fob in the center console and starts vehicles via apps on your phone, and key fobs in the car, and off it goes with easy access. So that also goes not just only at your house, but there's been an uptick with gas stations, you know, stopping, running in to grab a coffee or something and leaving keys in the car. And vehicles disappearing from gas stations as well. So that's just kind of a quick safety reminder, security reminder regarding our vehicles, prized possessions everybody has. So and then the only other thing that I previously mentioned as well is as of January 1, Deputy Strack has taken a different assignment within the sheriff's office. Deputy Smith has been the deputy assigned to Credit River with me as well. Our office asks those who put in for the Credit River assignment to commit 2 years. So I've just finished year 1. Jeff finished his year 2. So kind of gives an offset transition so that there's always someone who's familiar faces with the city. So that is the information that I have for you
Perfect.
today.
Jeff, back to the Citizens Academy real quick. What's the deadline for the registration on that?
I would have to look and see. I believe it actually says it on
Okay,
the link when you go on there.
yeah,
I believe it starts middle of February and runs February and March.
and is it 8 weeks,
I believe it's 7 weeks.
7 weeks?
7
Okay,
weeks.
if anybody's interested, I took it a long time ago. Really interesting. You learn a lot and definitely worthwhile doing. If you have any interest in seeing what they do at the sheriff's department, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the court night, when they go through courts, they actually
Mhm.
walk you over to the courthouse. I don't remember if they take you through the tunnel. That connects, so there's
We
a
didn't at the time.
tunnel that connects the jail or the sheriff's office to the courthouse that we can transport inmates back and forth through. So, but you go to the courthouse, the judge comes and talks with you, asks questions.
They still tase somebody?
I haven't done that for a while. Our
Now it's not
K9,
as exciting anymore.
K9 comes in, does a demonstration. Typically one of the other deputies volunteers to let the dog bite us. So it's a great experience. I did it prior to me going to law enforcement. It was kind of hey, I think I want to do this. I want to learn how an office runs. It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun with it. So did that, joined the reserve unit, and ultimately ended up here as a deputy. So
Perfect.
good steps.
Cool. Awesome. Any other questions, thoughts? You guys good?
Yeah.
Deputy Pearson, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Have a great evening and be safe.
You too.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine, non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requested an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight, on the consent agenda, we have the December 18th, 2023 council meeting minutes, claims approval, approve a letter supporting the creation of a local housing trust fund, and resolution 2024-04 appointing election judges for 2024. Is there any items which anybody would like to remove from the consent agenda and discuss separately?
3.1.
Okay, the minutes?
Yep.
3.1 will become 7.8. Okay,
I'd like to pull 3.4.
okay, that'll be 7.9. All right. With that, do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the two items?
So
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leroy. So a motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in open forum tonight? Seeing none, we will close open forum. Move on to section number 5, presentations. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. I would ask, Dominique, you can't steal it yet. Not yet. I told her to steal it, but you can't get it yet. I'm going to ask Matt Holsworth, our new planner, to come up and introduce himself briefly to the council and to the community. Matt started with us on December 4th as a planner with the city, and he is dug right in and getting to work, and will be working with community members if you call with issues and questions on permitting, zoning. He is kind of the first line to be able to be here and to answer your questions. So Matt, if you want to introduce yourself briefly to the community.
Yeah, hi everyone, good evening. I'm from Fergus Falls, Minnesota. And I recently graduated from St. Cloud State with my degree in community and economic development. And then I do have a minor in geographical information sciences. Like Kathy said, she did kind of take quite a bit of my intro away from me. I will be doing a lot of minor permitting and a lot of just the basic permitting questions for anybody here in Credit River. And then hopefully eventually moving into some of the more major permits. But yeah, like Kathy said, I've really just kind of been diving in and seeing what Credit River has to show me so far. And it's been really great so far. So I appreciate you guys taking the chance on me. Yeah, when I'm done.
Well, thank you, Matt. We appreciate you being here and coming
Yeah.
on board with us. And yeah, it sounds like you've been a big help so far, and we appreciate that. The opportunity that you're going to give our residents for some better customer service is when they come in to have questions about a permit.
All right, yep,
Yeah.
that's totally my goal, is to just be that person firsthand that can answer any of those.
Yeah.
Kind of just basic questions for anybody here.
So how do you end up in Credit River from Fergus Falls?
Well, I went to school at St. Cloud State, and there is an internship requirement for the degree, which I then fulfilled down in Jordan, Minnesota, and then just kind of trickled my way down over here, I guess. I mean,
Awesome.
just kind of happened, I guess.
Yeah, nice. Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here today.
Appreciate it.
If you don't mind
This one.
moving that over here, Shane will need that next.
I might just move it right back there again. I typically stand when I present.
Oh, that's
so
fine.
if that's okay.
We'll get you a wireless lav.
I'll leave it here for a minute.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Moving on to item number 6, public hearing, public improvement hearing for the 2024 overlay project. Engineer Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a presentation with a few slides that I just plan to go over to give kind of everyone a basic overview of what's being proposed. So my name is Shane Nelson. I'm the city engineer. So we're proposing improvements in several project areas. They're generally shown in blue on these exhibits. So West Side Drive, Pebble Brook. We advance the slides. Basically all the territory developments on the north side, Palomino Drive. And then if we advance to the next slide, all the territory development on the south side. With the exception of, I would note that Dakota Avenue is not proposed to receive an improvement this year because it was just recently improved a few years ago when the Reverend subdivision was constructed to the south. We'll go ahead and advance the slide. So just a little bit of background. Credit River owns and maintains about 53 miles of paved road and 12 miles of gravel road. So overall, maybe 65 miles of road. This project that we're talking about tonight is actually a pretty large project. It's 4.83 miles. So it's it's a fairly significant portion of our roadway system. But the point is that we have a lot more roadways and roadway needs. So we just don't levy enough to fully fund our improvement projects. Therefore, we have this system where a portion of the improvements are assessed to the benefiting properties, and that which leaves a portion of it to be paid by city funds. And these roads were programmed to be improved in 2024, which is why we're here tonight. So overall, the pavement is in fairly good condition for its age. We're aware of that. A lot of times we hear at the public hearings, why are you doing an improvement now? The pavement's still in okay condition. We acknowledge that. There is some normal deterioration. And why we're here tonight is because we like to improve the roads at strategic times to try to make the roads last as long as we possibly can. So we're trying to achieve the lowest life cycle cost. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slides. So these are just some pictures of the existing roadway conditions. And we can notice that the roads have been seal coated before. We see some transverse cracks. They're sealed with rubber sealant. We can just kind of advance through some more slides. There's some more of the existing conditions. Overall, these roads, they're not alligator cracking yet. They're not breaking up really bad yet. We can see, some cracking kind of in the offset. If we keep on advancing the slides, there we see a little bit more tighter cracking. I think now we're in the territory developments. There we have a longitudinal crack. But yeah, what we're trying to show here is, just the roads. They're 20 years old approximately. They're not brand new roads, and they're not completely falling apart. So we want to try to stress that we are aware of the condition of the roadways. We'll just continue through the pictures. So before I talk about the improvements, I just want to talk a little bit about pavement. So this is a cross section. Sorry, I'm kind of behind you. Some of you, maybe I should stand over here. So this is a cross section of pavement, and this is actually a pavement core. So it was cut with a circular blade. And you can see in here, there's rocks, there's smaller rocks, and then there's also sand, and then the bituminous. So you think of the rocks, they're kind of what provides the structure. And then the smaller rocks are kind of in the sand or the filler. And then think of the oil as the glue, kind of what holds it all together. And so when a road is new, you'll notice the surface is pretty smooth, right? You don't see a lot of exposed aggregate. You don't see a lot of rocks. All you see is that smooth surface. Well, what happens over time, we can advance the slide, is we start to, just because of the effects of weathering, we start to lose that oil or the glue on top. And through the degradation, now we start to lose the smaller sand particles. Over time, we actually start to lose larger rock particles. So what happens with our pavement is this top surface kind of degrades just from the natural weathering. So this is a road that is what we call exhibits alligator cracking. And if nothing happens or if no maintenance is performed over time, this is what happens to almost all roads. It's not because it was bad pavement. It's just because through the weathering and through the repeated loads, over time, the pavement has broke down. One reason that the cracking's concerning is the cracks act as direct conduits for water to get into the aggregate base below. And we try to seal all of our cracks in the roadways as often as we can to try to prevent this from happening. But once it gets to a certain point, it's just not effective anymore to seal the road or seal the cracks. And when the water gets into the underlying aggregate base, the material gets saturated or supersaturated. And any material, when it's supersaturated, becomes soft, right? It loses its stability. So that's when we start to have secondary cracks around that primary crack. So this is just kind of an exhibit showing a load applied to the roadway surface. Underneath it, you have saturated aggregate base. It yields under pressure. It might do that a few times before the pavement starts to crack, but over time it will crack, and as more cracks develop, it will kind of propagate, or the cracking area will get larger. So in the wintertime, we actually have kind of a different phenomena that occurs. We still have melting in the wintertime. We have several days when it's warm enough for, snow and ice to melt. Runs into the cracks. Sometimes those cracks can become super saturated. And then when the temps cool again, that freezes. When it freezes, it expands the volume and that pushes up on the road. So that's what we call tenting. And if you ever feel a really bumpy road in the wintertime, a lot of times this is what's happening. Those cracks have pushed up because of the water that's in the aggregate base underneath. And that causes the pavement to break as well. Okay, so this is actually a clip from kind of a MnDOT website that shows funding for our state highway system. And the only reason that this is applicable tonight is just because to show the sheer volume of how much money we spend on highways in Minnesota. Can advance the slide. So all those sources equal about $2.6 billion per year. And MnDOT said, if we're going to be spending all this money on our highway system, we ought to make sure that what we're doing is the right practice at the right time. And so they dedicate 0.5% of that total funding per year to research. What that means is they spend between $3 and $4 million in research. And I just like sharing that because I think it's important for everybody to know that we don't do our own research here at Credit River. We rely on experts at MnDOT and other agencies who have actual research budgets. Okay, so basically what all the research has told us is that when pavement deteriorates, it follows what they call a typical pavement deterioration curve. And one thing that happens is, or one thing that I really think is interesting about this graph is this first 40% drop in quality happens over 75% of the pavement's life. So in other words, if it's a 20-year road or road with a 20-year design life, that first 40%, it takes 15 years to observe that first 40%. The next 40% drop in quality occurs over 12% of the pavement life. So a very much shorter time. So again, once we start experiencing some weathering on the surface, once we start having some cracks that introduce water in the aggregate base, that's what's happening here and kind of accelerating that pavement deterioration curve. So what we like to do is we try to interrupt that pavement deterioration curve with scheduled maintenance. So every time we do an activity, it's kind of interrupting that normal pavement deterioration curve, whether it's crack filling or seal coating, or here we're at, between years 18 and 20 or right around there, we're talking about a structural improvement in overlay to get that, the condition of the roadway back up and again, delay the deterioration curve. So we're trying to extend the pavement life and get the lowest life cycle costs, because not only does it reduce the expense of the residents, it also reduces the expense to the city. So this is just kind of a bar chart to show the different type of improvements. The routine maintenance up here, the crack filling, that's the blue. That is barely noticeable on a per mile basis. What we're talking tonight is what we call structural improvements. It's in the gray. And if we don't do this, if we kind of miss this opportunity, the next opportunity would be the reconstruction of the surface. And so that's in the orange. So we're trying to do an improvement now to make the roads last another 10 to 15 years or add 10 to 15 years of life. And we're trying to avoid or delay this more expensive improvement. Okay, so the proposed improvements consist of edge milling, where we have curb and gutter, milling at the ends of driveways, particularly for the concrete driveways, and then constructing a bituminous overlay. So a couple of the advantages of the bituminous overlay is it's going to add structural strength. We talk about a bituminous overlay, we're talking about something about this thick. This is actually a 2-inch core, so this is slightly thicker than we would do on the normal local roadways. On the normal local roadways, we do 1.5 inches, so about 3/4 of this. But on our collector roadways, we do utilize a 2-inch thick overlay. So there is some structure here. You can If anyone wants to take a look at that after the hearing, feel free. And again, in addition to adding the strength, we're also improving the ride, extending the life and achieving the lowest life cycle cost. So this is what the typical section looks like. We have a little bit of some varying widths out there, but generally they're 11 to 13-foot lanes. In the areas again where we have curb and gutter, we would mill those edges with a taper mill. And then in the rural section, or the areas that don't have curb and gutter, we have ditches. There we just be thoroughly cleaning the existing pavement surface and then going up. So constructing that overlay on top. And that's either 1.5 inches. Well, it's 1.5 inches primarily on this project, with the exception for Dakota on the north side from County Road 8 to the north would be a 2-inch overlay, because that's designated as a collector road. For cost, our engineer's estimate for the entire project is just over $1 million, $1,027,500. That includes the extra 1/2 inch of bituminous pavement on Dakota, which the city pays for, which is $28,770. And then the remaining portion of that cost is split 50-50 between the city and the benefiting properties. So again, when we look at benefiting properties, it's generally all the areas that are highlighted in yellow in this map, with the exception of Leroy mentioned there's one resident in attendance that that abuts the roadway but doesn't front onto it. And a lot of times at the assessment hearing, those properties would be removed or not assessed. So the city's policy or past practice has been to assess all properties that have a primary access or a secondary access. But if you have a primary access, you don't need to travel on the road. Generally, those have been removed prior to the assessment hearing. So again, just kind of showing all the properties that would potentially receive an assessment from this project. Again, they're all shown in yellow and have a blue number, with the exception of there is a development that's currently being proposed on the north side of Territory. So on the north side of Territory, you see this kind of this pink shading, and that would be there's a plat application that's called the Yellowstone of Credit River, and that property was receive what we call indirect assessment. So they don't directly front on the improvements, but it's necessary for them to use some of the roads in order to access their development. And so they would help their pay kind of a proportionate share for the improvements. Again, the territory on the south side of County Road 8. Okay, so the assessment unit for this, or assessment type for this type of project, is a per unit basis. There are other types of assessments, whether it's front foot or area of lot. We generally find that in residential districts, all properties generally use the road about equally. And so Credit River uses a per unit assessment method for this type of project. Again, we have the indirect benefiting property north. So 50% of the remaining costs would be assessed to the benefiting properties. That would result in an assessment amount of $2,430 per unit. The indirect access assessment proposed to the Yellowstone of Credit River property is $27,945. And then just a little bit about the assessment. So when the project is first when the project's constructed in 2024, you generally have until about November to pay off your assessment in full if you wish. If you choose not to pay your assessment off in full, it'll just be added to your taxes and amortized over time, which is generally 10 years. So at this time, I just want to stress or maybe state that what we're talking about tonight are all estimates. So at this point, we've done some work to prepare a feasibility report, but they're all estimates. And as this project progresses, the numbers would be refined So tonight, we're kind of giving you an idea of the project and what we think the assessment amounts may be. And the actual amount of the assessments would be separately provided to you in a separate notice later on, in which you're invited to come back for the assessment hearing. So a little bit about the schedule. We're here tonight at the public improvement hearing. And this just kind of shows all the various steps that the city must take in order to complete a public improvement such as this. So we're interested in hearing everybody's input tonight on the project. And then after tonight, the city council will consider ordering the improvement at an upcoming meeting. We have to still advertise for bids. The city's bound to choose the lowest responsible bidder. And then once we have the actual bids, that is generally when we invite all the residents back in for the assessment hearing. That's when we know the numbers and we can say with more certainty what this project will cost. So one other thing regarding the schedule is, as I mentioned earlier, we have received a plat application for a development called the Yellowstone of Credit River. And if that occurs, it will be necessary for the construction traffic to utilize Dakota Avenue, possibly Covered Bridge and Whisper Way, or possibly Prairie Grass Pass to access a portion of the development. And so at this time, we don't have a development contract or a schedule yet with the developer. We have a kind of an idea of what they think their first phase will be. But if that project moves forward in 2024, we would likely delay improvements to whatever their haul roads would be, just because generally pavement is kind of tender when it's new. We don't want that heavy construction traffic going over the new improvements. All right, with that, that is all I have for my presentation. So I think I will put the mic back on.
Yeah, put it back on the podium, please.
Back on the podium. I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate the presentation. First, we'll start. Council members, anybody have any questions or thoughts before we open the public hearing?
These are the same numbers that I put in the budget, correct? Your estimates, your $1 million that I saw in there, that was what was in the budget. Hasn't changed.
Okay. Sounds good. At this time, then, we will open the public hearing. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions or speak on this project. We do ask you that you do come to the podium if you wish to speak and state your name and address for the record. Don't everybody jump at once. Okay. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, I'll tell you, so when did we start this, our improvement plan? 2008, right?
2008.
And every year we get a little bit better at the presentation, answer more questions and put out more information up front. And when you get to this point and you don't have any questions, I think we've done a good job. Thank you, Shane.
And I should say one thing that, we're interested in hearing tonight. Right now, we plan on doing, constructing an overlay. And every once or occasionally at these hearings, we hear from the residents that something else is needed. Maybe drainage improvements, or there's this other problem. And so if there are other things that we should know about, things that only you might have knowledge of because you live in the neighborhood and we don't, those would be interesting to hear. So.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, Andrea McGinnis. I'm at 21430 Palomino Drive. I just had a question around the kind of long-term planning for, what would be next year, the year after that, especially as we're in a community where there is a lot of development happening. So can you help me understand a little bit more around what are the data inputs that are considered for that more like long-term planning, and are some of those plans, how are they shifted as the, developments are approved and et cetera, et cetera? I'm just really curious about you know, how does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I have a graph.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, so generally, after an overlay, we would schedule crack filling, or at least look at it for crack filling for 2 years. So one thing that happens is with concrete, we use expansion joints, and we also do sockets. We kind of tell the concrete where to crack. With pavement, we let the pavement crack where it develops the most stress. So you will find that over the first or second year, some of those cracks will reflect through that were beneath the surface. And as long as we get in there and crack fill them right away, it's not a problem. Beyond that, we schedule, we used to do microsurfacing, or we used to do seal coating every 7 to 8 years. We now do microsurfacing. And that has a little bit longer, has a little bit higher cost, but also has a little bit longer life as well. And then the overlay is generally scheduled right around year 20. So we're hoping that we can get at least 35 or 40 years of life out of the pavement. And then at that point, it's really a re-evaluate. In between there, when we have development applications, we always, it's always a little bit of a exercise, right? Because we can't put off a project just because we receive an application. Occasionally, we receive applications
Mhm.
and they don't move forward. We've had a couple probably these past 10 years. So we will continue to schedule the projects until such time that the actual construction schedule for any developments is known, and then we reevaluate. So.
And I guess too, I'm thinking more, excuse me, more like maybe broader than this project. So on some of the main access roads, right, with all the new development, there's a lot more traffic that is and will continue to be generated. And so being, you know, I've been in the community for only a couple of years. And so I'm already seeing how much it's changing, right? So I'm just trying to understand a little bit more broadly for how, like, walking through maybe a broader process to understand how the growth of the community, how that impacts the plans and how they evolve. So like, for example, one data input would be total houses. So we can make assumptions around cars on the road. So that would be one data source for, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I'm more curious, like, how does that analysis and planning shift? Is it done annually? Is it done more frequently than that? Is it done here? You know, just some more like general questions.
Shane, I think you've just recently done a traffic study in that area. With
Yeah.
general one with a couple of those developments there,
Yeah,
too, right?
that's correct. Once, so actually, we've been planning for the growth in this area, particularly in if you're talking kind of in between County Road 68 and County Road 8. The growth that's occurring there, we've been planning for it since 2003, 2004. So
This is on track.
yeah, back in 2004, when the significant interest first occurred, that was with the territory development. There was what's called a AUAR completed, alternative urban area-wide review.
Yeah.
That's an acronym off a little bit, but basically, yeah, so it's the number of housing units can generate the traffic. And based on how much traffic you have at an intersection, and that combined with your background traffic and growing that over a 20-year period, you can identify what might be turn lanes.
Yeah.
And so that was done kind of before that area was opened up or allowed for development. And then it's at a minimum, every 10 years, the city takes a kind of a holistic review of it, with their comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So we have things in there, or we review the traffic, review stormwater, and our upcoming comprehensive plans, we looking at maybe sanitary sewer and water supply for some of our developments that are in the north side of the city. So at a minimum, every 10 years.
Okay, clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Shane, in 2014, when we were on the County Road 27. Study, they did a traffic study from McCall Drive to County Road 2, so.
Sure. Yeah. Any other comments or questions tonight? Hearing none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. Been a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the 2024 overlay project. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Shane, is there any other action we need to take on this one tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. Great presentations.
Thank you.
Again, as Engineer Nelson alluded to, that there will be more opportunities for the public to weigh in and more information as we get closer to this project coming together. All right, we'll move into general business. 7.1 resolution 2024-01, making official designations and council appointments. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is considered the annual meeting for the city council. It's kind of the business meeting of the council, where on an annual basis, there's certain items that we need to take care of. So kind of some general housekeeping. Part of those include a resolution that designates our official depository, an official newspaper, and an acting mayor for the year. Those are all required to be done on an annual basis by the council by state statute. In addition, then on an annual basis, our council has looked at council appointments and evaluated and made committee and liaison appointments for council members for the upcoming year. So tonight we have in front of you with resolution 2024-01 these efforts. And as we kind of look at them, the acting mayor for 2023, Councilor Markert was appointed that after Councilor Lawrence's resignation. So he has been the acting mayor for the second part of 2023. So council need to evaluate that position and appoint somebody into that position. On the official newspaper, in the past, the council has designated both the Prior Lake American and the Lakeville Sun-Times or Lakeville Sun this week as the official newspaper for the city. And what that means is every time the city is required to publish a notice of a public hearing or a notice for an ordinance or any other matter, the city has to publish in both newspapers. Statutorily, we're only required to do this. We only need to appoint one newspaper, and staff's recommendation as we look at 2024 would be to just appoint a single newspaper. This is due to the fact that in addition to publishing it in the newspaper, we also have our email bulletins that we send out, and we're sending out these public hearing notices and any of the other required notices via the bulletins. So we have an alternate means of getting that information out, as addition to we do post on our bulletin boards and put it on our website as well. With that in mind, we recommend we can save a few dollars for the city and just go with a single newspaper. Looking back at the historical analysis of what we spent for the two papers, know that, like I said, if it goes to one paper, it's going to both papers. You could see in here the kind of historical spend. The Lakeville Sun-Times or Lakeville Sun this week came in at a lower cost on an annual basis. So based off of that, staff has made a recommendation that the official newspaper be appointed as the Lakeville Sun. Council is more than capable to have the discussion and decide to point the Prior Lake American or to continue with both newspapers. But we kind of throw that topic out there for the council for consideration tonight as we look at 2024. And then the official depository is the other requirement. And our banking is done through Old National Bank. And so that would remain our official depository looking into 2024. Committee appointments, I put in a couple of them. We had the city attorney RFP was for a very designated piece. Mayor Costick and Councilor Markert have been on that. The city engineering RFP, Councilor Schumer and Councilor Soderbach is on that one. Government Center has been Councilor Zanto and Councilor Soderbach. I didn't make the assumption that you want to continue with it that way, but so I'll let council decide that. And then we need appointments for two. We've had two scale representatives to attend the scale meetings historically, and then the scale exec is usually the mayor's. So that's I left that one in there. And then we have the liaison appointments, which we've had for the communities, the Savage Prior Lake, Scott County, a liaison for the townships. I included one for Lakeville. We did not have one for that in 2023, but I think there's some things that may be coming up on the horizon with a road project and so forth with them that could make that a good liaison to have appointed. And then the Planning Commission, and then we've historically appointed for the fire department and the sheriff departments as well. And then just kind of my last note on the resolution is we do have a change with the ordinance in council compensation going into 2024. It was effective January 1st, 2024. Changed the annual salary, but then it also changed the meeting per diems to $80 per meeting. But it narrowed it and focused it to meetings where you've been appointed as the official meetings. So these council committee and liaison appointments would be the ones that would qualify for meeting per diems in 2024. So happy to answer any questions, but there's some items there for the council to discuss, and let me know how you wish to proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Administrator Reynolds. Council members, should we tackle the newspaper first?
Sure.
Thoughts? Leroy, what's the history?
Continue.
That's been going on.
Continue to
for-
do both of them since we have a split school district. The reason that we've always had the two newspapers.
The 2021 Prior Lake American, is that a typo? Or did we just do that much publishing in 2021?
I think it's a typo. There's an extra for.
Oh,
It's $44,000 seems like an
Four.
awful lot. I think we could buy that newspaper
it's direct.
as a business for that kind of money.
I take off 1-4. It should be the 4,000.
Still a lot of
62.
publishing in 2021 for some reason, but
Yes.
yeah. Other thoughts?
I kind of think that we should continue to do both because half the city doesn't get the other paper. So it's not that much money for us to be transparent.
Pains me to say this because I'm the one that says we have to be open, but who reads it? Really?
I think
The
you'd be
website would
surprised.
Way better.
It
And
is.
we push and,
But I think you'd be surprised.
yeah,
Yeah, I often wonder too, Abe, that same question. But I still think there's a different generation, enough of them still living in the city that likes to pick that paper up and look to the back at the public notifications.
Okay.
And actually, I do read through the ones in the American when I get them, just to see what's there.
if we believe that's true, then I
Mhm.
do agree that we should keep both.
Yep.
I would keep both. I
Okay,
don't even know, how do you get the Lakeville one? Is it free, like the Prior Lake American is?
I think so,
Is it?
yeah.
How come I don't get it? You have to ask for it.
You're probably not quite in their service area.
Well, that was gonna
I think
be
you're on the
a
other
I think
side
you're
of
on
the
the
line.
border somewhere. I don't
question.
know
So
where
it's
the
only
border.
in the school district?
Yeah.
I don't know that it happens quite in the school district. The Lakeville and American have some line somewhere
They do. Okay.
in there where, and
So I
you know, you think about population, right?
Right.
I don't even think I think the population's probably close to 50-50 on each one,
Oh, it is.
you know? I think because I think the Lakeville paper picks up more
Precinct 1,
space.
precinct, Yeah,
Yeah.
I prefer both still, for the $1,000 or whatever.
Mhm. Okay,
Can I make a suggestion for staff? I think we need to keep driving the website and pushing and getting more
Yeah.
people on that contact list and, keeping that contact list clean. I know that's a little bit more work, but I think as generations shift,
mhm,
that newspaper becomes less and less relevant.
yeah.
We've gotta hit the social media, we've got to hit the accounts that people are starting to really look at.
You're right.
They may start to go away. Belle Plaine went away, and that was the county's
Publishing.
publishing,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those are getting, that newsprint's getting pretty thin. It shows up on
They are.
Saturdays. All right, sounds good. Acting mayor, Bill Market was appointed again in 23. Does anybody wish to do that again, or should we appoint Bill again?
I'd like to appoint Bill.
I'd like to.
That's me, the job, I don't do it.
Haven't had to actually do anything yet, have you? Okay. I'm good with that as well.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, liaison appointments.
Bill want it?
I don't think he has a choice.
Okay.
I think a super majority says he's gonna be it.
We used to do this, someone would usually miss the meeting and man, would they get a stack of stuff.
I'm good with it.
All right, with the other committee appointments, is there any changes that anybody'd like to make, or should we leave them the same?
I think. Leave them the same. Looks good.
I'm good with leaving them the same myself.
Anything you want to get off of, Abe?
No, I was,
We took out finance committee. That was gonna be a question I have, like, has the finance committee ever done any, like, what are we losing if we?
We haven't done anything with that for a couple of years.
So,
time.
so a council member isn't involved with the bond negotiations or the.
It
budget
used to
prep
be-
in advance of the coming to.
Yeah.
council.
It used to be in the township form of government that 2 supervisors would review every claim monthly
Mhm,
and go through all that.
okay,
We haven't done that
right,
since, yeah.
okay. If it's not necessary, then if no other cities have them, then I'm okay with it. It's just,
I think, Bill, if things come up, we can appoint some people for
Yeah.
a task
Yeah.
force
Yeah.
type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, so
Um,
that one would go away.
So Mayor, I take, we're doing basically what we had from the recommendation is from that September 23
Mhm.
document that I put in there to continue those. The only addition is we took off the finance, but we've added Lakeville as a liaison, so we would still need somebody for the Lakeville position.
I'd happy to be a part of that. If somebody else would
I
join me,
would too, since
Okay.
I'm not.
sounds good.
You get your free paper then, Bill.
All right,
so Mr. Mayor, I see a lot of your name on there. Are you comfortable with that?
yeah, most of these aren't
Okay.
regular occurring things, right? I mean, fire department, we meet once or twice a year, sheriff's department's twice a year, Savage, Prior Lake, once a year, so it's, yeah. I'm good with that. I don't think we've met with Spring Lake Township, Ted. All right. With that, I think we've covered everything. If so, I would take a motion to approve resolution 2024-01, the resolution making official designations and council appointments.
So move.
Thank you, Jay.
Second,
Thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-01, making the official designations and council appointments for 2024. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 7.2, resolution 2024-02, appointing check signers for 2024. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the requirements that we should have is basically formalizing who's appointed to be able to sign the checks for the city. And that is usually done by a resolution on an annual basis. So resolution 2024-02 is formalizing in a resolution format the appointment of the check signers, and with the appointment of the acting mayor for 2024, we would fill that in as Councilor Markert. Otherwise, we would recommend council approve it. Willing to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Administrator Reynolds. Council members, any thoughts or questions? No. If none, I would take a motion to approve.
I do have some questions on that. So state statute says mayor and city clerk. How did we get to a third one on there? Does that run us into some challenges? Especially with the clerk not local, what have we seen over the last year? 'Cause it seems like a lot of extra, and for what reason?
Mr.
We-
Reynolds?
We have, and I guess Dominique can speak to it better than I probably can, but historically, there's always been 3 signers, I believe, on the checks for Credit River. We've continued that tradition from the township days into the city days. So our checks are signed by the mayor, finance director, and then in theory, it's the city clerk. But I've been signing that as the deputy clerk because the city administrator is also appointed as our deputy clerk. So those clerk signatures have been accomplished by myself signing on the documents. And so that meets the requirements there and moving forward. And that's not necessarily untypical for a city to have their clerk and their mayor because that's what's there, but also to have their finance director sign off on them as well.
Does that put us in a place where we're delaying payments because someone's not around, or is that not an issue?
No.
We always make it work, even when somebody hasn't been here. I've come down and signed checks.
The only comment I
Pass.
would make is, if I may, is on the payable.
It's on already. I just shut it off. There you go. You
In
good.
the payable, payable policy, we talk about electronic signatures, so also we have that option going forward once we approve that.
Okay.
Is what I would add.
All right. Sounds good. Any other questions? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. So I've got a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-02, appointing check signers for 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to item 7.3, adopt city council bylaws. Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. On this one, I'm going to talk rather briefly. The council appointed Councilor Markert and Mayor Costick to draft some bylaws for the council for consideration. They get together and worked, and I worked with them in coming up with some bylaws. And the attached document here is the draft that has been prepared and is presented. I know there was an opportunity to do some review and provide some thoughts on it. So I would turn it over to the council for discussion on what they'd like to see. I'm ready to take any notes if there's any changes or anything else that we'd like to do, but we would recommend the discussion and adoption of the bylaws if we are ready to do so. And then these would be brought forward and reviewed on an annual basis, once again, at this annual meeting on it every year.
Okay, thank you, Administrator Reynolds. Council members, thoughts or questions?
Couple. One would be on the work session that we had talked a little bit about past year, about possibly trying to record some, or at least make copies so people can see them, public can see it, just interested in people's thoughts on that.
Should be in there.
So it is the way it is written, Jay. And we can go ahead.
I think it's 308.
It's 305.
It's okay. And then
Yeah.
308, meetings and work sessions in which form is present shall be live streamed.
Yeah, 308 is that one.
Yeah, I missed that part of it.
305.
Yeah, I was just focusing on taking minutes. So
Yeah, and we can certainly go ahead and do that if you wish. Probably takes out some good discussion that there's a lot of people act differently when the cameras are on, but it's up to the council.
I think it should be.
I do too. That was the whole start of this whole conversation is I'd like to have those video recorded. For people that can't attend that night.
Okay, what else?
Are you ready for mine?
Jump in.
First, thank you both for doing this, because I think it's needed, and I think putting some formality around it's gonna be really helpful, I think, for not only for us, but for our residents, so thank you for taking the time, because I know it wasn't just wave the wand, it was done, so I appreciate that. So I'll go line by line, if you don't mind. I think you saw, Mayor and Billy, you saw my comments. So section 102, supermajority, there's no definition around that, so I think we just need to define what a supermajority is.
Yeah,
It's 4 or
So-
5.
for, we can definitely add
Yeah.
in parentheses, define it just as 4 out of 5.
Section 302. When we start talking about, second paragraph, the city administrator may cancel or schedule a regular city council meeting. There's no language in here about any kind of approval from council and or mayor, so it gives a lot of privilege to the administrator to cancel a meeting.
So
without-
can't, if you involve the council, that violates open meeting laws.
So the administrator can just cancel a meeting without any.
Somebody has to be able to.
That
Right,
seems
'cause
really
you-
bad to me.
Well, but think about it, like if tonight's snowstorm today was, a blizzard, 12 inches of snow. Right, somebody has to make a call and it can't be, we can't get on the phone and call each other and say, hey, should we cancel the meeting, right? So we have to have somebody be that point person to make that call.
Kathy could call each one of us and get our input if she wants it.
If we're available, right?
Right.
That, and Chris, that's what I was thinking of when I said, yeah, just have Kathy consult with each individual council member, just calling them and say, listen, I'm thinking about canceling it. Are you okay with that? If that breaks meeting, if you go.
No, I
Mr. Mayor,
contact each.
Hang on one second, Bob.
I can talk to each of the council members and get
Yeah.
each council member's input, but the council members can't talk to each other.
Sure.
So you can't collectively, like, I can't email you and you email back to everybody else. It all has to be routed through me. That
Yeah.
does not violate the open meeting law. What I would say is typically with canceling of a meeting, that is typically delegated and something that an administrator is allowed to do on a routine basis. If there's, I know, or I should know, because council members have contacted me to tell me that they're not going to be there. So I know if we're not going to have a quorum. And so just the simple ability to cancel the meeting. If the weather is looking bad, we can make the call and the judgment call to do it. Or if I'm the one that's going to know whether we have items for the council to consider or not. And I could tell you my typical practice in doing it, and I don't know that this needs to be resolved and put into bylaws. But my typical practice is going to be to reach out to the mayor and say, hey, look, I see the storm coming, or we're not going to have a quorum tonight.
The power's out in the city.
If I know far enough in advance, maybe it's hopefully before tonight, or, power's out, AC, there's no agenda items. I'm in the position to do that. Typically, I'm going to talk to the mayor and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing, and let him know to do it. But as I said, this is a routine matter that is typically delegated to a city administrator that, they're the ones that are putting this together. We know what's coming up. We know the urgency of the matters that we need to address and the timeliness that we need to be able to address them. And whether I can say, oh, we can't do it tonight, but we're going to need to reschedule a meeting because I can't hold some of these items for another 2 weeks, or, yep, we're good with canceling this one, and the rest, it can wait for 2 weeks until we get to the next meeting.
And Abe, we're actually following what Kathy was just saying with the planning commission. I mean, I don't make the decision. We don't talk. The planning commission doesn't talk about canceling it.
Staff does.
There's nothing staff does.
If there's
and
no
lets us know,
items, yeah.
and lets the public know.
Right, but before the cancellation happens, I think there has to be an opportunity for council to say, wait a second.
We're
There's
usually
not-
given a reason though, like, there's nothing on the agenda, so we don't have to, we don't need to have a
I
discussion.
do
about
agree
it.
with that. However, the way this is written says, but not limited to, so it is. And I'm not saying Kathy's gonna do anything nefarious. Something comes up, I think we just have to put better language in there, or more precise language in there to say what should happen.
Jay,
If I could maybe suggest that after the administrator consults with the mayor or acting mayor, then that could happen. You know, if we have some language in there that says that she could cancel it, but needs to consult with the mayor or Bill, just to get a nod on it. And then cancel. I don't know that you need to go through all of the council members. I don't think we should. That would violate, because then we're gonna have an off-camera discussion, but if she were to say, hey, I have this reason, we're going to cancel it, then she needs to come to somebody on the council. And we could designate that person to be mayor or second. Then that should clear that up. You think, Dave?
I think there just has to be an opportunity for someone to give some feedback.
okay,
And again.
I-
Not saying that that's happening, but in the future, I just wanna, when we have bylaws, when we have ordinances, let's word them such that there's no. Possibility for something like that to happen.
It hurts me more than it hurts you to cancel a meeting. Because it impacts me and causes me more work than it does for you. So trust me, I'm not here to cancel meetings just nefariously. Because it's harder for us and for staff to do that because we have to look at what's our timing, how are things getting done, what's the requirements, several things are on deadlines. And everything going on. So trust me, it hurts me a whole lot more than it hurts you to cancel a meeting. And if it's like, no quorum, I'm like, oh, okay.
That-
What is that going to impact and negatively impact? And now do I have to plan a special meeting or not? Or how do we address it? So I don't, my 2 cents for you on that one is I don't see it as being a huge issue. Because by doing it, all I'm doing is creating more work for me and I've already got plenty to do.
Who's Bob? One.
yeah, I was gonna get back to Bob here in a second.
Throw in there.
Bob, you had a comment there. Sorry.
No, my
We
comments were
looked around
addressed.
after you tried jumping in there.
That's all right. My comments were addressed already.
Okay, thank you. Jay, did you have something else?
Yeah, I would just add then that it could go the other way too. The mayor may decide on behalf of the council that there's a reason to cancel it. Can't think of a reason for that, but
Yeah,
then it's still the directions coming from the council through the administrator rather than the administrator canceling for the council without any input from the council.
I think for the sake of timing, I think if we're gonna have a check-in, I think check in with the mayor and possibly the acting mayor if the mayor is not available.
Right.
Again, this is gonna be such a rare situation. I can remember 10 years happening one time. That's because we all got here and the power went out.
I canceled the meeting in July because we had no agenda
We had
items.
no items. Yeah,
I think it was July, but yes.
yeah, it was July. It was because we'd made our way through it. So it's a pretty rare situation. But if that would make you feel comfortable, I think having one person, one check-in would be sufficient there.
So in consultation with the mayor,
Yeah.
you okay with that?
I think that would be good.
Okay.
I think the only other one just to be note of is to be careful of is rescheduling a meeting. Thinking in time. We do meetings every other week now. It'd be tough to schedule one in between with all the given notifications and everything in between, so. There's probably not much of an opportunity to reschedule a meeting in between. But it does say that the procedures for open meeting law shall be followed in that case, so. Okay,
So it doesn't hurt to leave what Bob had crossed out, if we just leave it in.
yeah. Hey, what's next?
306.1. copy of the agenda materials will be available in the council chambers for public inspection. We don't do that right now.
Yes, we
Yeah, we
do.
do.
Sitting right over on the table.
Okay,
It's been done ever since I've been here.
okay, perfect. I didn't know that was happening.
It's statutory that we're supposed to do, and it's been done since I've
Good.
been here.
Does hopefully our residents know that? Okay. I learned something.
I've seen people over there and reading through it too. Mhm.
So 308.1 and kind of 305 work sessions, I think where this kind of, all this came about was we had a group that wanted to have a work session, or they wanted to get on the agenda. I didn't really see anything on there on how to request an agenda, or do we talk through how would we get a work session set up? If the citizens want to have that, how do we go about doing that? Was that discussed during this?
I think that we had language in there, didn't we? Bill, we talked about that one even after the Abe asked that question.
It's in the 500s. Kind of in there. Public request, it comes into administrator, and then I determine if it should go on the.
502.1.
Yeah, it would go on the agenda, or if they should come in to talk at the open forum, and I would say, 99%, unless it's something that we're already working to bring into an agenda on staff side, I'll tell them to come into an open forum. And then from the open forum, council can either, I'll get direction from council to either, work with the resident on the issue they're addressing. Do you want to bring it into a work session, or, work the issue up and bring the materials back to the council for a discussion. So I think that's kind of covered and addressed in that section there.
Okay, so from a logistical standpoint, since we have open meeting law, residents come to each one of us with a question of getting on the agenda, they go to you as well. There's no action that can be taken unless they get on the agenda, like working with you.
It's council member directs them to.
Directs them through, funnels it through. It's all gotta be funneled through the administrator to get on the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, some way, I think it would be helpful to get that out to the public, because I know there was questions of that, and I know there was a lot of back and forth then.
And,
So-
and then I think on that one, and as it says it here is the answer. I mean, I can talk to the individual who wants to do it, but you can also tell them the route to doing that is to come forward to a meeting, talk in open forum, and put it out there. Then the council can go from there and see where they want to go. So, I mean, I can talk to people and help people through all that process, but for council members as well, it's come to a meeting, talk at open forum, put, if you want to have an item placed on the agenda for discussion, it's getting out there first, so then the council can determine whether they want to hear it, or if you want to come in and ask to see if there can be a work session on a topic, present it there, and then the council can decide how they wish to move forward with it. And I'll work with the council to see what we do from that point and forward. Maybe taking that, they did it here, then I'll reach out to the council members after the meeting and say, okay, we heard X, they're wanting to do this. Are we, do you want me to get that scheduled?
Council members.
Would that mean that we need to slightly look at the verbiage on our open forum rules then? For them to come through the open forum to do it, because we don't allow certain things, political or we're being limited a little bit to who can be on an open forum, come to that. And then we also basically say that we don't take any formal action on any public presentations in that.
Correct. And you still wouldn't be taking any formal action on it. They come in, they address the council. If they want to have a work session on a topic, you're not taking an action. I mean, your action would be is the council could, as a body, direct me to do it, or I will reach out following the meeting to the council members and say, okay, this is what we heard. What's your guidance? So then I can kind of get a collective whole, where's the council at to see how we address it. I don't think it changes the language on the open forum on the agenda. Nor does it, I mean, you're not taking action on an issue.
Okay. Babe, next.
50111. It's saying that the presenter should sign to speak. We don't do that, right? We do that reactively. Again,
So
I don't think it's bad how we do it, but it's not what we state here.
Yeah, it is. They're gonna sign up now to,
So this would be a change in the process. So the goal of this, Abe, is to prevent that awkward moment of come up to the podium.
I'm perfectly
And-
fine.
and
I just want
sign
to make
in.
sure that's what we're
Right.
going after.
Yeah, and again, we wouldn't limit it. You know, if you didn't sign up, no, you're not, you can still come up and talk, but I think if we can get as many people as we can to sign up previous, it helps move things along better.
I'm perfectly fine with it. I just wanted to call that out. That's not what we're
Yep.
doing, nor. so
Yeah,
I'm
we would,
sure-
we talked about making sure that we make an announcement as we transition to something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of got a plan together already to transition that one, so,
Perfect.
yeah.
One question, when when we used to go to the planning,
Scott County.
at Scott County before I got kicked out of it, you had to sign in when you came in the door, so.
Yeah, so this is similar to the process at Scott County, Bartlett Lake does the same process.
the school districts. do
School
it.
district do it, I haven't been to a Savage Council meeting in so long, I don't remember if they do, but.
Oh.
Yeah,
So from a logistical standpoint, it'd be
We'll put a
back by
sign
the
up. Yep.
agenda.
I'll be there and I'll make sure.
Yeah, it will add to the agenda packet copy that's on there, the copies of the agenda, and now we'll also add in a sign-up sheet for public comment on the table.
they give them time to sign in, put the full email address, and then we'll be able to call them up in order and be a little more orderly about it.
So maybe we should put a QR code on there too, so it can limit paper.
No, I have to put the, we're
Well-
required to put a paper
We're-
copy of the agenda packet up.
Can we do, yeah, okay. I'll go past that one.
Statute, once again.
502.5. 5 PM 1 week prior to the scheduled meeting date. To put some agenda items on there. Two questions on that. Does that give us enough time? I know, there's the enough time from the city administrator perspective and enough time from the city council, and I know we have to be cognizant of both. But if we have residents communicating with us and wanting to bring things up, that does delay getting on the agenda pretty late. And I'm just more of a dialogue as I'm looking for, because
So think it through on the timeline, Abe, because depending on what it is, right, some things might be really simple, right, that require very little staff time, whatever, but what if it does, right? If it does, that gives 2 days really to get it on the agenda, develop a packet introduction piece, and then have it ready to be released on Thursday. It's not a lot of time if there's any research that needs to happen there. That's my thought, right? So if we do it Monday, that gives a little extra time for staff to prepare, and then it actually, is a good prepared discussion item when it's on the agenda at the council meeting.
so then what happens in the case where on Tuesday morning I come up with a agenda item?
You may have to wait until the next meeting.
We do meetings
it's
every 2
simple.
weeks.
You have to cut it off at some point in time. I mean, there
We
has
don't want to
be-
have any language in there that says at the discretion.
I will tell you what my interpretation of that was going to be is if you give me something on Tuesday morning, because it says here, the council members shall forward the request to the city administrator who will work with the council member to determine the best way to address the topic on an agenda. My interpretation of that is I'm gonna work with you, and if you're giving me something on Monday at 5 PM and I'm like, whoa, okay. Maybe this meeting isn't the best meeting for it. Let's hold that till the next meeting so we can prepare this information because I don't have time to get it here. Or it's like, okay, we'll just put it on and see what council wants before we go dig into all of the preparation. If you get it to me Tuesday morning, I'm probably still going to give you that same consideration of, can I get it there? Can we not get it there? Is it something we can address, or is it something I can't do? But having that cutoff at least gives us all target for that one. That's a little bit better, but I can tell you from my perspective, if you give it to me Tuesday morning, I'm still gonna do the same analysis. It's just what's the timeline before that Thursday 9 a.m. deadline for staff and everybody to have their agenda items in there. And what does my meeting schedule or Dominique's or Shane's or whoever it is that's gonna be needed to weigh in on it there, if we're putting people to work on trying to pull information together for it.
Jay,
Yeah, one of the things, we have probably a little problem with agendas or agenda packets and things like that, not being up to date, I know, once or twice, and this gets rid of that. I mean, that creates a new problem because we don't have the thing out, or we have to amend it.
mhm.
And I think we should probably have that rule stand through for anything, regardless.
Yeah, I think this is a good one to leave alone and then let Administrator Reynolds, if something happens to pop up that happens to be an emergency, we can make it happen, but in general, I think if we leave it stand as written, I think that gives us, again, Jay brought up a good point, a good target to have in your mind, so that at least you know that if there is something does come up, that there's a chance, then it might have to wait 2 weeks, depending on what the topic is.
Is there, just to add to that, would there be a possibility to publish the agenda packet earlier by doing so?
The deadline for the council, I would expect very, very few items to be coming to me through the council in this regards to get placed on an agenda. That doesn't change all the work that the staff is doing on everything else. And trust me, the Thursday at 9 a.m. is a hard enough target for people to make as it is.
Yeah, everybody's got a lot going on.
I mean,
Yeah.
Thursday at 9 a.m. turns into Thursday at 2-3 o'clock in the
Right.
afternoon. And then I still have to get through all the reviews and then do all the work to get it published. So that's a hard enough target.
Abe, what's next?
502.7. It states no items may be added to the agenda after the agenda is posted. This one we do at a relative frequency right now. Ditches or items that we talk about and put in general business. So the way I'm reading this is that will not happen anymore. Unless it's on the
urgent.
agenda. The only thing we're gonna do on one of our agendas, approve or amend agenda, the only thing we can really do is we can remove something.
Unless an urgent situation arises that requires immediate attention.
Okay, the problem we have, I have with putting those on there is that packet never has it.
Right.
So now, after the meeting, none of it's documented unless you go to the view.
And if I've kind of put something out there, I'm in this with, unless it's something that's really urgent, at which point in time, then we're bringing forth the information, but adding at the last minute, we should do, I would say the bare minimum, because public doesn't have the chance to know about it. The public doesn't have the chance to review it. And so my approach and guidance that has been provided in locations has been, if it's not on the agenda, then you can discuss it, but no decisions are made. It also then, if we're doing it that way, it doesn't allow staff to do the research, to do the dig, to pull the information up. So urgent situations that, sometimes those are going to happen and we just have to address. I don't even like to amend the agenda. Unfortunately, I've had to do that a couple of times in the last couple meetings. I don't even like to amend the agenda once I've posted it, and I definitely not doing it after, really, I don't want to do it after Friday. If I have to, it's like, okay, Friday morning, here we go. I don't even like having to do that one because I've already sent it out and that should be it. But sometimes, like the election judges, we have to have it done, and absentee balloting starts before our next council meeting. So I had to amend it to include that piece. So and I know different attorneys will give you different interpretations of that, and I think the position that, I don't want to speak for Bob, but I think what's been followed here is that's allowed and we can make decisions on it. Other ones will tell you it's allowed to add and you can discuss, but no decisions can be made. So
So
it's
shouldn't we put that
very-
verbiage in here? to what we're saying we should be doing, or we're allowing to happen? Cause I think if we are making decisions, and there's very good reasons to make some decisions rapidly, I'm not trying to minimize that, but either we're allowing it or we're not, and I think the way I read this is it can't, but except unless it's an urgent, let's define urgent, right? So I think we just need a little more clarity around that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Bob?
just to clarify the position that I have taken as your city attorney is that it's my belief that you as a body have the right to amend your agenda even at the time of a publicly noticed meeting. And there is no restriction on you doing that I'm aware of under state law. It may not be best practice. There's arguments like the city administrator raised as to why you may not want to do that, but I would encourage you to at least leave that option open to you, because there have been many situations where, whether it's a road condition or a ditch or culvert or something that needs to be addressed. But I have never taken the position that you can't add things to the agenda, or you shouldn't add things to the agenda. That's a policy call for you. That's not, I don't believe there's a statute that limits you.
Okay. Yeah, I think too, I think we're still want to take that policy though and make sure that we're in that situation so that we're not adding stuff. And again, I think urgent situations come in if there's a road that needs to be repaired or something like that, that comes up.
Ditch or a culvert or whatever,
Yeah.
that's the only time I add it on.
There's many of those types of opportunities, those things come
And-
up and they need to be dealt with relatively quickly.
And Mr. Mayor, I totally agree with that, and
Mhm.
I think we've used it appropriately, but we're allowing that open-ended. And unfortunately, we can't even have a discussion about the item when we're approving the agenda. So if someone's bringing an item to the agenda that we can't discuss until we approve it, how do we approve the agenda when we don't know what the topic is? That's my challenge.
Sure. No, I get it. Doesn't mean you have to approve it when it comes down to actually discussing the topic then. I mean,
So Dave, would you be okay if I think it was Kathy's suggestion where there's no vote, but we could put it on the agenda for discussion purposes,
that'd be a
but no
lot better.
vote will be taken that evening related to
I
it?
think that'd be a lot
Are you
better.
okay with that? Were you okay with that?
but I still think we need that opportunity if there's
Of course, I'm not talking
Right.
about the urgent one.
But then
Leave that in, we would leave that in too.
shouldn't we then make,
I don't know that you
I
ever get
agree.
concrete or black and white on urgent, what is urgent, right?
Right, but now our residents didn't even know it was happening, and we start making decisions on it, and they didn't even know it happened. And that's the problem I have with that.
No, I understand that, but we still have to be able to deal with a situation,
Correct.
right?
So then we have amend the agenda before we repost, so people know something changed yet again at Credit River, and then at least they're aware of it.
If it's in front of their house, they'll know.
Mr. Mayor,
Shane,
I just can think of a couple of situations and where we've had an urgent matter.
yeah.
One of them was, we had the fire that happened in
Mhm.
Hills of Credit River
Mhm.
in the spring of the year.
Tore the road all up.
Right, I mean, and we had, so there's tanker truck after tanker truck
Mhm.
hauling water into in the spring of the year when road restrictions were on.
Yeah.
And we literally had, so the weight of the fire engine pushed the middle of the road up almost a foot. And so if somebody were to,
Couldn't drive on it.
veer off the center line of the road, they'd bottom their car out.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be considered an urgent matter, but it'd be hard to come up with a definition that encompasses all those situations.
yeah. That's one that you'd never, in your wildest dreams would have never thought about and
Right,
that road, our gravel roads are in better shape than that road was after that fire, yeah.
Yeah.
Another one was the flooding.
Flooding.
When we got flooded, we
Mhm.
had to add that to the.
Yep.
Because we did all this work on the road.
But did that happen the day of the meeting?
It happened before the meeting and then we had to add it to the agenda.
Right, but what I'm talking about is let's just repost the agenda then with the urgent item. you'll have the thing that happens at 5 o'clock, right before a city council meeting. That is urgent. But when it happens the day before, I know we don't like to repost, and I agree we don't like to repost, but shouldn't we give notice?
Well, maybe we should just state then at the end, just every opportunity should be taken to repost the meeting agenda if possible. I think we just add that line to it, and then I think that covers it, then it gives direction that as much as possible. We're going to, every effort must be made to attempt to repost it if needed.
I would just say that our attorney kind of gave us an answer as well, which is, we should be trying to do best practice on this. And we should probably, our language may urge us to do best practice. However, the council can overrule any one of these. We just don't remove that restriction. It would just be kind of one of those things where if it absolutely has to be done, we still have the ability to do it. But we shouldn't. So I don't know if that works for you. I can't give you the language, somebody else could come up with the language.
I'll just be honest, I'll be a stickler on this one, and I'll call it out every time as when did you find out about this? Right? Because I think we have to do a good job as a council to be able to represent what we're gonna be talking about as early as possible, to be able to make sure that the citizens know what's going on.
Okay, so we'll add that piece.
Add some language in regards to that.
All right, what's next?
Question on minutes on 7:01. So I don't know what we can or can't do, so this is more of a question than an ask. Is there a possibility the minutes come out after we approve them? So until that time, the only way our residents know what happened in the last meeting is go watch it. Is that a correct statement? Is there any way to post draft, or is that poor practice? Is that not even what we should be doing? That's more of a question. I don't know the right answer.
I mean, your draft minutes get posted with the agenda packet for the next meeting, so they
Fair
are,
enough. That's good.
they are part of your agenda packet that goes out the Thursday before the meeting.
I didn't think of that.
Um,
I'm good with
any
that.
earlier than that, they may not necessarily be ready, and I wouldn't necessarily post them out there in draft form before that.
Okay. Fair enough. 1102 advisory committees. I don't see any language in there as to who appoints.
Appointed by the city council or combination, yeah. Oh, it'd be composed of,
I think it's down under kind of 1103. I mean, that's about vacancies, but I mean, you
Vacancies.
would follow that same process.
screening
for
committee, yeah.
What'd you say? 10?
1103,
1103.
the next,
Well, 1, 2, and 3, right?
Yeah.
Applications are solicited, screening
Mhm.
committee. Screening
Oh,
committee
okay.
just screen the candidates.
so, I mean, it talks about vacancies, but that,
Okay,
I would say that was your process for appointments.
Mhm.
okay,
That's
So-
similar to what we've done to appoint planning commission.
okay. So then on 1103.2, the act of the screening committee. The way I read that is members of the committee shall serve the city administrator or designee, the city council liaison, and members of the committee shall serve as a screening committee. The way I read that is, if I'm adding a new planning commission member, I've got 4 planning commission members, 2 liaisons from the city council, and city administrator. So that's 4 votes from the city, from the planning commission. I know votes isn't the right probably terminology, 4 recommendations versus 2 from the city council and 1 from the city administrator. I just feel like we should limit that committee down to from the committee itself, the chair and the vice chair versus the full committee. So then it's 2, 2, and 1 versus.
Or unless it's one of those members that needs to be appointed, but. When we did when we've done the appointments for planning commission. This last
Chair and
time,
vice chair,
it
right?
was, right, it was 2 members from the planning commission, 2 members from the council.
Keeping it at 2 members, council will avoid open meeting.
Right.
As
Yeah,
soon
yeah,
as we
yeah.
put the whole.
No, we don't need the whole
commission-
council, no.
Yeah,
just-
well, the whole council or the whole like planning commission,
Right,
then we
right.
run into open
Right.
meeting
It
laws
just
and
needs to
have to
be-
do it.
Just
So
needs to be 2 of each.
I would make a recommendation that
Yeah.
it be, your city council, your liaison, 2 members of the
Committee.
of the committee.
Yep.
So we avoid open meeting law violations.
Mhm.
Yep, I do perfect with that. I think I'm getting close.
So there's no changes we need to make.
There, yeah, we would just have
Just-
2.
Yeah.
Add the
just,
number 2.
Add number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
1406, point of clarification, metropolitan government unit, what in the world is that?
That was just a term taken out of the prior lake documents.
That could be anything, right? I mean.
I looked and I couldn't find it. It's just a
It-
general term.
It's a general term based of, it could be,
Any other
I would call it
government, state
typically, you're gonna see it as a local governmental unit, but they said
Mhm.
metropolitan, so it's, limited here to the metro area, so. Yeah.
I
So
guess you can be appointed by an outstate one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just confused.
local
To me,
governmental
it's not a
unit,
Huge deal, I was just,
city, county, watershed, school, those are all considered local governmental
Yeah.
units.
mosquito control.
Yeah.
The last thing that I had on here was resignations. I really didn't see anything about resignations and the appointment process. I know when Bill was brought on, we had discussion on, state statute, and state statute lets us be very, we could figure out exactly how we wanted to fill that. I think it'd be good if we had that discussion when it's not needed. I think we should have the discussion now versus when someone does resign in the future, so that we have a process in place. I thought it just opens us up to a lot of discussions at that time that I didn't feel super comfortable with it. I thought we could have had it more defined. And so while we're talking through here, why don't we talk through that? So I'd come up with a couple ideas.
I know that in my one thought, as you get into the ideas and you can have the discussion on what you want to do with it, but I would do it in ordinance, not in bylaw. I would, if you're gonna set up a policy or a procedure, kind of how you're gonna handle vacancies on the city council, I would draft that into an ordinance and not put that into the bylaw. But we can have the discussion if we want to do that, and then I can take that.
I'd
and
rather,
put together
if we're gonna do
bylaw or
a different
ordinance,
document
but-
for it, I'd rather we draft a draft document before we have that discussion.
Yeah.
And, since that wasn't on the agenda as part of tonight's meeting, I think we should take that as a separate action item.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, plus we got still a long list of items to get through on tonight's agenda.
I've exhausted my list.
All right, good.
I'll add to my list,
Yes.
an ordinance on resignations.
So did we capture everything we're changing? Or are we having to come
Yes.
back and?
No, I think, is there anything,
No,
okay,
I do have a logistical question. Will we be voting on something tonight then, or? will we
Yeah,
have
if you're
wait
ready
till
to.
Kathy comes back. How are we gonna put that into motion with the things that?
with the noted changes?
With
We
noted
know the
change.
change, can we read those back then? I mean, how do,
Lot of clarifications. So what I have
Mr.
here,
Mayor, could I suggest something? It's recorded.
Hmm.
We make a motion for the changes as recorded in the meeting.
I think though, as what Councilmember Zanto and Mark are alluding to, that they'd like to understand what those changes are before they vote on that. They want to make sure that's captured. Yeah,
okay. Want me to run through what I've got in my note here.
Kathy, run through it.
Section 102, we're updating and putting in a 4/5 supermajority designation. 302. For cancellations, we're saying in consultation with the mayor or in his absence, the acting mayor. Um. 502, we're reporting, reposting the agenda, so putting in language, about reposting prior to the meeting, so getting the information out as to the, be information of getting it to the city administrator, so agendas can be posted or reposted prior to the meeting. We'll work in language to that effect. And screening committee to add in, that's 2 members of the committee. And those are the ones that I had that were making physical changes to the document. I think I caught them.
I think so.
Otherwise, I think we had discussions on other ones, but I didn't know that any of them were changes.
So we weren't gonna add any clarifying language that an agenda topic could be brought up at a meeting, but there would be no vote. Is that?
No, that,
part of-
we did change that. That's where we added every effort will be made to
Repost it.
repost the meeting.
Oh, that's what
prior
we're
to
talking
that.
about with
Yep,
reposting.
Yeah.
But it does not, it still allows us to make.
if we need to,
Yeah.
Correct.
yes.
Well, I would make a motion to approve with those changes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. Thank you, Jay. Motion is second to adopt the Credit River City Council bylaws with the noted changes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 7.4, City of Credit River Purchasing and Payable Policy. Finance Director Hill. Good evening.
Mayor and council, so tonight we have the subject of purchasing and payable policy. We're asking for motion to accept the policy that's attached. So, the policy essentially delegates purchasing authority to designated staff and provides the guidance in terms of processing claims, I guess is the vernacular we would use. So this is how cities operate, so it's a little different than how we've done it as a township. So Administrator Reynolds asked me to take a look at the policies. So this one, as a part of the annual policy, would need to be put into place, and this would increase efficiencies in city operations. So I would welcome discussion and any questions about the policy. We did receive feedback and made adjustments. But in terms of the document, if there are any questions or
Okay. Council
Changes.
members, thoughts, comments, questions?
I had a number of them that were kind of like shot down because I was looking at this as. In my former life as a CFO, I had more control over some things, and the first thing, maybe a clarification, where in the policy does it say that expenditures can only be taken if they're in the budget? Where is that in this policy? That if someone's authorizing payment for something that it's been proven that it's in the
page
budget?
6. All expenditures must be within the limits.
Under what section?
established. It's right under document, it's under budget. So all expenditures must be within limits established by the department budgets. Any non-budgeted item must be approved by the city administrator or council. if greater than 25,000.
Okay. The second concern I had is that, well, just help me out here. What,
That's okay.
define what designated staff is. So let's pick on Matt because he left. Are you saying that Matt is a designated staff if you make him one? So any entry level, and we only have 3 staff members today, but any entry level person is going to be able to approve up to $2,500? Or are you going to designate people that can approve things and cannot?
Did you want to take that?
I can take that. We designate people that positions require them to have the ability to make purchases. So would we designate Matt as a as a planner here in the city with a purchasing authority? No. We hire a public works employee. Yes. Usually you don't designate every single public works employee. Usually your foreman, your superintendent has the purchasing authority. And they're doing the purchases in essence for the public works at that level, if there's things that need it. So
You will designate people. It won't
Yes.
be the
Positions.
guy that cuts the grass as $2,500. And
No.
to go out and.
if we get a public works person, we'll see how it plays out, but more than likely so that, if the belt breaks on something, they have the ability to go to and pick it up and get a new one and replace it, kind of things. So Public Works typically has some authority, but like I said, it wouldn't be every single position or individual within a Public Works department, but that's one that's typically given some authority.
Okay.
But yes, it would be a by name designation of these are the individuals that have the authority, because they need it based off of the roles of their positions.
Okay.
Another example would be the city clerk.
Yeah, the city clerk, they do the elections and the ability to,
Postage and mailings and-
the postage, the mailings, the elections, the stuff that they need to buy and purchase for the elections. It just increases efficiencies to have them have some authority to be able to make purchases.
Okay. I had crossed out 25,000 and put 20,000. And what was the rationale for 25,000? Just a number?
No, it matches. So you have the Minnesota Uniform Municipal Contracting Law, that this policy basically is following those requirements. So if you look at your table in here, as far as the procedures and the authorizing documents and so forth, you're looking at a lot of those requirements and those levels. So $25,000 is the position that requirements under the Uniform Contracting Law change. And so it's kind of mirroring up that purchasing authority with that statutory language. And so that's where you see it. And it's what you're going to see a lot of city administrators have. You will see the 20,000 use some. That's a Plan B statutory city. The city manager by statute has a $20,000 limit.
Is that
So
why I saw it? Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So that's where that number.
'Cause that's
will
where I
come
got
in.
my 20,000 from.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where that number comes into play because statute gives a city manager in a Plan B city 20,000. So you'll see that number, but a lot of cities mirror it and line it up with that Uniform Contracting Law, so that $25,000 number.
Okay, that's helpful. Just a couple more, Chris. Did you, I didn't look to see what changes you made though, but are we confirming that any vendor we use for the city is authorized in the state of Minnesota to do business and we collect a W-9 from them prior to making any payments to them? Do we do that?
We do collect a W-9. Yes.
Okay, so we
For
are doing that
payments.
and we're confirming that the vendor is eligible to do business in the state of
We don't.
Minnesota. So we don't go onto the Secretary of State website and just do a quick search for the company. Isn't that something that we'd want to do?
We don't do that with every single company that's out there. Everything that we do, I mean, I don't know that you necessarily.
Why wouldn't we want to if they're shortcutting, not even filing something with the Secretary of State to do business in the state, why would I ever want to do business with them if they're shortcutting that? Who knows what else they're going to shortcut? And it's just a good control to have in place that these people, this vendor is doing it right.
we make sure that they're properly insured.
Mhm.
Well, that's important too.
Mhm.
I'm just,
Usually if they have to put up, if they're insured up to $1 million or $1.5 million, I think that we require, I would think they're pretty responsible, but
Mhm.
we can take another step, I guess.
I just think any business we do business with should be eligible to do business in the state of Minnesota. But that was a suggestion I had, but it's good that we're getting W-9s.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a threshold. I don't think we have to. We don't have to
Correct,
submit
in
10,
terms-
yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
to submit 1099s if it's
Well,
under
there's a-
600.
Couple of thresholds. There's the dollar threshold and then the type of business
Okay,
it is. Like S corps and corps, you're
Yeah.
not required to do 1099s. So there's some nuances.
but we are collecting the W-9s and we don't need to put that in our policy that we would do that.
I think we
That
It
actually
we
references
do
it.
have it.
It does
in the
reference?
Policy.
Did you,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you
in,
add-
it's
okay.
on page 7.
We didn't add it, but I think we
Bottom of page 7.
finessed the language
Okay,
to incorporate your comment.
okay.
Yes, we did.
There was something else that wasn't here and, I'm just used to having my attorney always looking at an agreement that I sign or that I sign on behalf of whoever I'm working for, and we don't have that in our policy, that we don't want to run it by an attorney when we're signing a contract that commits the city to spend money.
No, most communities, once you have like a standard contract in place, I mean, if it's something unique, something different, you usually run it by your city attorney, but if you're looking at, you get a kind of a model contract, a standard contract, and you're usually using that shell, then you're not running everything by your city attorney in order to save the expenditures. Now, they've looked at the standard contract and they've given us, here's the standard contract. We fill in the blanks.
Yeah,
And as long as we're using that contract, we're not sending it back to the attorney to review. Now, if you're making amendments or changes to the contract, then you're sending it back through an attorney to get them to look things over.
Bill, on page 7, it does say engage city attorney as needed.
okay.
And-
That's the
I'm
contract.
not saying this would ever happen, but let's say we have a rogue city administrator that is really upset and is gonna be leaving soon and does a contract with some friend, commits the city to a bunch of money, the money goes out, and we never had anyone else's eyes look at it. And it's more of a control that you put in place, that you have someone else's eyes look at it, and typically it's been an attorney. Right? It's just a sign off. It's a mitigating risk.
Bob,
It-
hang on. Oh,
It's-
Go ahead,
I
Ken.
would expect that I would say something if
Yeah.
that were the case, but
well, and then it, the max that would be 25,000. Because then it requires approval after that, but,
Understood.
yeah. And to Dominique's point, there kind of is, because I think the finance director would have that understanding of those things going on. And sorry, I know I cut off Bob and I cut off Kathy. Bob, if you want to jump in and,
Well, yeah, Mr. Mayor, Bill, historically, we have, exactly as the city administrator stated, we have always gone and reviewed the contracts, created forms. I'm a firm believer in creating those types of form contracts. And with the understanding that if anything changes, other than the name of the contractor or the amounts and so forth, that it's okay to go ahead and authorize those, sign those contracts without my review, unless it gets modified in some fashion. So for,
yeah,
and so if you're looking at concerns, as long as it's something entering into a contract that has already been vetted by the city attorney's office, I think you're okay.
Okay. If everyone else is comfortable with that.
Councilmember Shadaba,
That was all a good discussion. Where does it say that?
right under page 7 of the contract documents, where it talks about creating contract documents.
consultant involvement,
Yep,
Mhm.
it's like about.
technical terms,
there's-
legal
Paragraph
terms.
on page 6.
Yeah. And the very last line must coordinate with the city administrator who engage the city attorney as needed.
Yeah, all right. We're good.
Okay,
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, the only other thing that
Don't egg, yeah.
the only other thing that I'd like to consider is something of the credit card use on section 9, page 9. Just a thought process on credit cards, and you know, everybody's got rewards and benefits of credit cards, just a line that states that all benefits of using that credit card are property of the city and not to be used by individual employees.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like we captured everybody, so we'll take a motion to approve. Sorry, I gotta get back to the top of the title.
Purchasing and paying.
Credit River purchasing and payable policy.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Jay. The motion is second to approve the city of Credit River's purchasing and payable policy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to item 7.5, resolution 2024-3, the delegation of authority to pay claims and make electronic transfers. Dominique,
Mr. Mayor and Council, so as a part of the annual process, cities do a resolution, so we're requesting a resolution for delegation of authority to pay claims and make electronic funds transfer. And this is a city process versus a township. So currently, we've been doing the township process. So basically, it would grant authority to his designee, and that would be the director of finance, to go ahead and pay claims on your behalf or the city's behalf and make electronic funds transfers. The requirements is that we have internal controls, which are payable. Purchasing and payable policy is a big portion of, and then also providing regular review of expenditure lists for the council meetings, and then also having an audit. So the proposed resolution would delegate that authority to pay the claims. So the difference would be, it would be a list instead of signing them all individually one at a time. So that would be what it would look like. So I would welcome any questions or if you want to go ahead and accept the resolution.
okay, thank you, Dominique. Council members, any thoughts or questions?
I think we're trying to move forward with cutting out some of the work and doing this electronically to start with, and this enables it.
Yeah.
And it still allows us a chance to look at things and review them.
To still have the
I think
claims
this
list.
If anything, this probably saves us in taxpayers' money. And we still have to check controls.
Mr. Mayor, the one thing I would ask is during this claim process that we're doing right now, it allows me an opportunity to see what makes up those numbers, especially when we start talking about payroll. How are we gonna see that level of detail? Because the claim list right now just lumps it into one big,
Just says what each line is. on
right,
there.
but underneath there, there's a lot of claims that come through.
But you would still have the opportunity to see those if you wanted to. You would just have to request.
Okay.
Like they're still available for you to
Review.
look at.
So can you have a
It's not-
standing request
So
to
we
get that?
won't, yeah, we won't be like, well, you don't need to see that. We'll be able to like ask for it and get it if we want to see
Yeah.
it.
Okay, yeah, I would like to see those every time. So I don't know if I just put it on that path of asking.
I mean, are you wanting to see like every single payroll timesheet every time, or what is it? I
It's
mean,
not necessarily,
so-
for me, it's not necessarily every payroll timesheet or anything like that. It's nice to be able to look at one. And it's also nice to look at like a vendor invoice to see what they're actually, and when we're signing them, I do look at them. You know, some, I don't look at every single one, but there's certain ones that say, hey, I wanna see what's making up this bill today.
And with those, that would be part of that, you know, in advance of the council meeting, we put out there the claims list, and if you want to see something, then you would just, you
So
know,
you
say,
could ask for it then, and then-
ask for it, and we would, you know, be able to get you, you know, hopefully a scanned image of it, and we can say, here's, you know, or at least, you know, scan it to you and say, okay, that's made up of, this is what, you know, this is what it's about. So you would
So-
still see the claims list that you have in there. You would see it on a monthly basis instead of every single meeting. We would do like an end of the month. You know, here's all the claims that have been paid this month. Here's your list. And then, you know, you still have the ability to ask the questions, and we can provide the information in the background on any of those that you have.
Would-
So you know what's being paid.
Would this be something where you'd still have that packet? Just,
I would have the packet on my desk. It
So
would
after-
not have the sheet
Right.
of paper. So
so,
that ahead of time you could say, I want to see X, Y, and Z, and I could pull it, or you could
Or-
just know the packets.
that's my question. So that after the council meeting or something, if they wanted to review any of those claims, that you could whip through and do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You just wouldn't
So that-
have that cover sheet
Yeah,
any longer.
okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I take a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-3, delegating authority to pay claims and make electronic fund transfers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 7.6, summary of the December 18th City Council closed meeting session. On December 18th, at the December 18th, 2023 meeting, the council held a discussion on the administrator's performance. This discussion was required by the city administrator's contract to cover her first 6 months of employment. The discussion focused on 7 identified items and an overall evaluation. The administrator's performance was found to be meeting expectations, and the council members were asked to think about their goals for the administrator over the next year and provide feedback to her. So that's just a summary of what happened at that closed session on December 18th. No action needed. Moving on, item 7.7, the city attorney recommendation and selection, Administrator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We've gone through the city attorney RFP process. Once again, this RFP, request for proposal, was started in response to the council's goals and objectives that you had for 2022 and 2023, which was to review all of our professional consultant services and to kind of go out to see what was out there and what was available to ensure that we were in the best position to keep moving us forward as we go. We did do the RFP process. We had 4 law firms that responded to the request for proposals. Reviews were completed by the review committee that was appointed of Mayor Costick and Councilor Markert. And with those reviews, we brought in 2 firms for interviews. The 2 firms that came in for interviews was Kennedy Graven and then the Corey Rupi, which is Bob's firm, our current city attorney. Interviews were conducted Friday afternoon. And so we weren't able to summarize the results of the interview in the council packet, but kind of go over those as we look at it. Reviewing the firms or reviewing the proposals, we looked at the experience of the firms, the experience of the individuals, kind of their approaches to legal services, and then the cost that we were looking at it. As we looked at the 2 firms and did the evaluation, the recommendation that came out from the review committee was to move forward with a recommendation for council of working with Kennedy Graven, moving forward as our city attorney. The overall consensus is Bob has done a great job for the community and has worked with us for a long time. And we appreciate all the work that he has done with us and for the city. But as we looked at some of the overarching factors, we thought that Kennedy Graven would be in a good position to move us forward. Some of that was looking at was the depth of the firm. Kennedy Graven has 34 attorneys and 14 support personnel, as opposed to Bob's firm with 2 individuals, 2 attorneys, and 1 assistant. just provides a larger depth of experience and knowledge and reach back if needed. Kennedy Graven is currently our bond counsel. And so they have worked with the city and we do have a relationship with them in regards to that. The individual attorneys that we're looking at, I didn't put down the last names here. Pete would be the lead city attorney. He has 20+ years as an attorney. In the interview process, he did tell us we would be his sole city that he would be representing. He does have the expertise of kind of doing eminent domain and some infrastructure work is kind of his expertise area within the firm, and we would be his sole city that he would represent as a city attorney. Rachel was the assistant city attorney with a depth of experience working for cities directly and also with the firm now. And then Christina would be the associate city attorney. That would be, you know, as an associate as the firm, which would get a lot of the work would pass through Pete and onto Christina, where she could handle it at a junior level. As we look at that, the hourly rates proposed by Kennedy Graven had our the shareholder, which would be our city attorney, was $190 an hour. The associate attorney with Christina was at $170 an hour. With development work, which is considered that pass-through work that gets passed on with the escrows to developers, at $275 an hour. As we looked at it and we compared that to the Curry Rupee proposal, their hourly rate is at $265 an hour with development pass-through work at $290 an hour. So kind of summarizing, I guess that's kind of some of the positions and some of the thought processes as we went through. Like I said, it took a lot of deliberation and a lot of thought to look at it because we know Bob's done a great job for the city, has a lot of historical knowledge and in working with us, but kind of looking at what positions us for moving forward. The recommendation coming forward to council is to go with Kennedy Graven.
Okay, Ms. Reyes, thank you for the introduction. Council members, any questions, thoughts, comments?
Not on the committee, so kind of more interested to hear what the two new members thought as well.
It was a tough call because I'm very comfortable with what Bob has done. I've been coming to meetings for many years now, and he does a great job. To me, it was we're moving into more complex things now. We're going to need more. I think we're going to need more reliance on with our attorney on some of the things that we're going to be working on. I was more comfortable having a law firm that has 34 associates, 34 lawyers versus 2. And that I'm just more comfortable having a big group of people being able to tell me what the right thing is to do than just have 1 or 2 people. So to me, that was key. The rates too are Bob's rates are 40% higher than what Kennedy Graven's going to charge us. Bob doesn't have an associate, so the associate's even less expensive than Bob's rate. So that had something to do with it. The cost increases over the next 2 years, we had that propose those things. Bob's price increases were going to be double the percentage increase that the Kennedy Graven proposed. That was another factor. Bob bills at a 15-minute increment. Kennedy Graven bills at a 6-minute increment. 6 minutes is standard, in my opinion, not 15 anymore. So it was little things. I mean, the scoring was very close between Bob and Kennedy Graven, at least for me, and I think it was for Chris too. But I just felt more comfortable when it all said and done to go with someone new. Okay.
Yeah, just to add on there, Bill, it is a very hard decision. Worked with Bob for a really long time as a part of this. So, but when you kind of look and step back and take the emotions out of it and really look down at and decide what's the right thing for the city to do. And I wasn't so much worried about the money as much as, the little things that we look at going forward of what we'll need in the future moving forward. And thought that was a better opportunity at this time. Any other questions or comments?
No, just sorry to see Bob go. 17 years, I think,
Team,
19?
Yep.
Huh. Yeah.
so with that, if everybody's comfortable with that, I would take a motion to approve, and I would expect that there'd be a transition period, Kathy, that you'd negotiate with the attorneys and whatnot to,
I would work with attorneys to make sure we get everything transitioned and
okay.
turned over as we go forward, yes.
And you will work on a contract with the new law
Yes.
firm as well.
So the motion word tonight is to authorize the city administrator to work on an agreement with Kennedy Graven and work to do the transition period.
I'll make a motion to do exactly that.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. Got a motion and a second to approve Kennedy Graven, approve the administrator to work on a contract with Kennedy Graven and to work on the transition period. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 7.8, item pulled by Councilmember Soderbach from the consent agenda, December 18th meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor. Some of this was answered, I think, in our bylaws, but. It's section 6.5, which was actually financing, there was a 3-minute from in the recording, it's from 42 minutes to 45 minutes. With 3 council members, the mayor and the administrator discussing the amending minutes or amending packet, agenda packet, everything else, and it's not at all in the minutes anywhere. From the way we're going to go forward, where we are only basically putting in a motion in a second, and the result of it, and less discussion. I think that's fine, or we can go find it, but I'm just wondering where there are in the minutes places where we have comments that are added in, but then there's a lack of comments on other things, on how things were discussed and everything else. So this might be a bigger discussion for later, but I'm just, just kind of throwing that out there, and I don't know if that's gonna make me come back and say that I won't do minutes. As it is, I just want a chance to talk about it a little bit. I have emailed the administrator to have a discussion, further discussion on how we record and how we put these things together, and hopefully in the next few weeks we get that on the agenda. But that was really the only reason I wanted to pull it. I just wanted to have a chat about it.
Okay. Is there any changes that you want to make to the agenda or the minutes, or should we?
I don't
Okay.
believe so.
So it sounds like there's already action happening on this item.
I've asked for.
Okay. So then why don't we go ahead, and if anybody else is comfortable with the minutes, why don't we go ahead?
Motion.
Thank you, Jay. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. We've got a motion, a second to approve the December 18th meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes, and Kathy, I'm assuming that you'll answer Jay's questions and stuff at some point.
Yes.
All
I'm
right,
working.
perfect. All right, 7.9, election judges. So we've got the list of election judges. Abe, you had pulled this one from consent agenda.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just I pulled it for the simple fact of how do we more asking questions on what do we do, how do we do it? Is it the right way to do it? As I looked through the list, 2, 4, 6, 8, just shy of 24 election judges are listed. Do we keep that up to date? Are we going through there and asking for this over time? Because when I read the resolution, the last statement is the city clerk shall be authorized to appoint or hire the required number of persons. And I know that's a catch-all, and I agree we need something, but I'd rather not do that. So how do we as a community, how do we as a city get that word out? How do we ask for that? Much like we do for committees, so that we don't have to go to that path and we can actually get residents that want to participate as an election judge. So I think it's more of a question on how do we go about doing that? Is there a good way to do it?
We have, and we do have, a page where people, I think on our website where people can fill in an app, an interest form and send that into the clerk. It is pretty typical. You take the people that we already have in essence on our payroll and we carry them over to the next year. We clean it up every year. People, say, I don't want to do this anymore. Yes, I still want to do it. And we kind of move it forward. And then, you are seeing is, do we need more? Elections come up, people will say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. I'd be willing to come in and do this. We reach out to them and talk to them and add them to the list. So you kind of, it's a growing thing. And then if we find that we get into a position where we are like, okay, our list is getting really short and we don't have people coming in, we do have, kind of advertise for it and say, if you're interested in being an election judge, here, come, we're looking for people to do it. In addition, so there's, I think it's more kind of, it's casual, but you do always have a list that's a lot longer than what you need, because especially like this year, 3 elections, 18 days prior, you have early voting, you add in absentee voting, which like for the presidential nominating primary, starts January 19th, and then around February 16th or something. I don't know the dates. Karen may know them better than me. We go into the early voting and then you have the election day, and you're going to find by the time we get through this, people they're not available. They're not going to be available for all 3. So you kind of keep a pool that's higher.
So do we take this opportunity now in one of our newsletters or on the website to start asking for asking for volunteers to come forward? That was more my point.
We can always keep doing it. I know that other organizations do throughout the year. I see Scott County promoting that, check with your local cities and local areas for that. It does happen. I don't know, I don't know if we'll be added any more for this year.
It kind of depends a little bit on what 18 days prior looks like
Right.
and how,
So
these individuals, what their availability looks like to start covering it as we start communicating with them more.
Denise is ready to do 40 hours a week.
There we go. We may need it.
Is it at both locations or?
Early voting so absentee voting and early voting will just occur here at City Hall. And then the primaries, the election day, will be in the 2 locations.
Yeah.
So we'll vote everybody at one location until we get to election day.
I've been kind of watching for an email with regards to this. Who is it coming from? City clerk?
Yeah.
Or
City
where is-
clerk.
We'll get Denise, if we could we can answer these questions offline.
Yeah, the city clerk will be sending out information. She's working on it right now and it should be coming out shortly.
Leroy.
And to Abe's point, probably 5 years ago, we did raise the pay.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't get any, we were having to pull them from other areas,
Yeah.
and then we increased the pay and then they started coming.
So can I just make a suggestion then for staff? Can we get that on the webpage, and can we get that in one of the newsletters so that as primaries start kicking off,
Mhm.
more and more people are in
Thinking
that
about
election mode, let's front end this
Get
thing
some
so
more
we're
people
not
on the
going
list.
back end.
That's, we met, Karen and Amy and I met on Friday and some of the, election news and promoting stuff and what's going on with all the different variations in voting and happening and getting some materials out. So it will be forthcoming once we can get there.
All right. So the resolution we have before us is 2024-04, appointing the election judges for 2024. Anybody ready for a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Abe. The motion is second to approve resolution 2024-04, appointing election judges for 2024. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving into staff and council member updates, 8.1 building permit count, Administrator Reynolds.
Okay, one moment, got it. Get
Down
ready
to
so
the
I can-
bottom of the document.
Gotta get ready so I can share that. So let me. Get this so people can, oops. See what we're talking about. Make that go back away. So we've got some year-end numbers that we can look at for our 2023 building permits. Ending the year with 18 applications in December. It's always a slow year. We had 3 major permits issued, 11 minor, for a total of 14 in December. Puts us with 578 applications received in 2023 and a total of 415 issued. New construction, that number has been updated. And we had 16 new home construction permits that were issued in 2023. And the major permit valuation, so this isn't just the new homes, but the overall for the 118 major permits that were issued is $19.4 million in valuation on the permits. And you can see the permit fees collected on the issued permits. So this isn't on the application. So there's more than that was when we look at the applications, but the permit fees are just under 500,000 on the issued permits. So it's kind of what we're looking at with 23. As we move into 24, it will be exciting. We have Citizen Serve moving forward. So we will actually be able to start doing some cross comparisons to, 23 numbers to what are we seeing in 24 and see what that, start seeing some historical trends and what that will look like with the system. So that is what we're seeing for building permits for 2023.
Okay, council members, any questions, comments?
No.
Okay,
Did the fees come in about what we expected?
This number includes escrows, TBD.
okay.
Let you know as soon as I have it.
Must mean that we have to back out some escrow stuff
With
to
a penny
get to the
to
bottom
the
line.
Yeah.
number.
Exactly.
Oh, that
So
includes
this
something.
is
If it's
not-
Most,
This
Uh,
is,
it'll be
Yeah.
less than this.
yes, sorry.
Yeah.
What-
This is
what we're
not out
pulling-
financial.
Yeah, what we pull out of Citizen Serve is just the gross amount that's being paid through Citizen Serve. So that's including her escrows. And so it's not being backed out.
Yep. Okay, good. My suggestion on 8.2 is that we table that for a later council meeting, given the time of the day. If you're okay with that,
I'm fine with that.
council okay
Council's
with that?
decision.
Okay. And then anybody else have any other council member updates?
Just one, we're done grading roads.
Okay,
Now we're plowing.
did you have something, Jay?
Well, yeah, I don't know, at the scale, it was kind of interesting, there was, some Minnesota legislation that, was initially calling everybody here at this table a lobbyist. So, and the need to file for it, but after the presentation, I think there's a little bit less of it. Presenter was actually the person that did the legislation. So, it was a little bit kind of a one-sided, display. I think we should probably look into the ordinance or the
Statute.
the statute. And just make sure that everybody at Credit River is well apprised of it and protected.
Yeah. Be good to get the League of Minnesota Cities info on that when it
And
comes
actually, we have a
available.
legislator in the audience, he could probably tell us a little bit about it.
I think we'll leave John alone tonight. Okay, thank you, Jay. Just a quick heads up, speaking of scale exec committee met on Friday, just a couple highlights of that. One thing, just so everybody understands, the Shakopee Manitowoc community has their own fire department. It's a full-time fire department. They operate and to provide mutual aid to the cities in Scott County under a memorandum of understanding that has been in place since 2004. They are working to update that memorandum right now. Because it hasn't been updated since 2004. So there's just a bunch of language and stuff that has changed on that.
Does it impact us at all?
it potentially could affect our
Mutual aid.
contract with Prior Lake at some point if there's costs involved. Now, there was no mention of costs involved or anything in the short discussion that was had. I think it's very early in the process.
Okay.
So to be determined, TBD. Upcoming in February, was in February doing the emergency management training? I think it was. I forgot my sheet.
Yes, February is the
First one.
first.
So there's gonna be 4 sessions, 2 hours at a time. Elected and senior official emergency management training provided by Scott County. It'll be at the Scale training facility. You know, as Deputy Scott Haas talked about that, you know, we haven't had any widespread emergency in Scott County since about 1998 when the big derecho came through and knocked a bunch of trees down and wrecked a bunch of homes. So
And a bunch of barns.
and a bunch of barns is I hate to say it, but
Overlap.
as Scott mentioned, we may be due. So
So that's something you suggest the council go to?
I think there's some opportunity if people are interested. It'll be on Wednesday mornings for 4 Wednesdays.
Will we get notified in the email? or
We'll get
something?
some, yeah.
I will send information out. I have it to send out
Yeah.
to council. I just haven't gotten it out yet to see who's interested in attending. And so then we can get the registration in.
2 other things real quick from Scale Exact. Again, I mentioned once before that the Scale is going to work on a countywide health insurance study to see if they can combine. You know, they've hired Gallagher's to help with this study to see if it makes sense for all the county units to participate in one group. Currently today, Scott County is self-insured, so potentially joining that as one big group. So more to come on that. That could be helpful. And then finally, tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock at Scott County Government Center will be the Metropolitan Governance Task Force, where task force that's charged with looking at the Met Council, its makeup, and some opportunities there will be tested or receiving feedback. If anybody's interested in speaking at that. And that could be residents as well. Representative Koznick in the house here is on that task force, so he'll be hearing from me tomorrow night. That's all I've got. Nobody else?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Abe.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. So a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.